The late night at Blake Industries. Natalie Brooks rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the spreadsheet glowing on her laptop screen. The numbers blurred together after 10 straight hours of analysis, but she refused to give up. This merger with Redwood Technologies could make or break Blake Industries, and as the lead financial analyst, everything depended on her getting the projections exactly right. The 38th floor office was nearly empty now. Most employees had left hours ago, heading home to their families and Friday night plans. But Natalie stayed, her desk lamp creating a small pool of light in the darkened workspace. She loved these quiet hours when she could focus without interruptions. When the only sound was the soft hum of computers and the distant rumble of city traffic below. "Brooks, you're still here?" The deep voice made her jump. Natalie looked up to find Harrison Blake standing at the entrance to his glass office. His jacket draped over one arm and his tie loosened. Even after a long day, he looked impossibly put together. His dark hair perfectly styled and his sharp features showing only the slightest hint of exhaustion. "Just finishing the Redwood projections." "Mr. Blake," Natalie replied, trying to ignore the flutter in her chest. After 2 years of working directly under Harrison, she should be used to his presence by now. But something about him still made her nervous in a way that had nothing to do. With professional respect, Harrison crossed the floor toward her desk, his footsteps quiet on the plush carpet. He leaned over her shoulder to study the screen, and Natalie caught the scent of his cologne. Something expensive and woodsy that made her head spin. "Your analysis of their third-quarter performance is excellent," he said, his voice closer than she expected. "But you've been here since 7 this morning. Go home, Brooks. The numbers will still be here on Monday." "I want to finish the risk assessment tonight," Natalie said, pulling up another document. "The board meeting is Wednesday, and I know you'll want time to review everything before then." Harrison straightened up, and Natalie could feel his gaze on her. "You work too hard." "I learn from the best," she replied, allowing herself a small smile. For a moment, something passed between them. A flicker of recognition, of connection that went beyond boss and employee. Then Harrison stepped back, his expression smoothing into its usual mask of professional control. "There's a company event tomorrow night," he said. "The annual holiday gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Attendance is expected for senior staff." Natalie suppressed a groan. She hated these corporate gatherings with their forced small talk and political maneuvering. But Harrison was right. As senior financial analyst, she needed to show up and play the part. "I'll be there," she confirmed.
"Good."
Harrison headed toward the elevators, then paused and looked back. "And Brooks, thank you. For your dedication to this company, it doesn't go unnoticed." Before Natalie could respond, he was gone, leaving her alone with her racing heart and the glowing numbers on her screen. The gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom glittered like something from a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over the crowd of elegantly dressed executives and their partners. A string quartet played soft classical music from a raised stage, and waiters circulated with trays of champagne and delicate appetizers. Natalie smoothed down her emerald green dress and accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. She'd spent an embarrassing amount of time getting ready, telling herself it was just about looking professional. The mirror had disagreed, showing a woman who'd curled her auburn hair into soft waves, applied makeup with unusual care, and chosen a dress that made her hazel eyes shine. "Natalie, you look amazing." Rebecca Chen from the legal department materialized at her elbow, already flushed from what was clearly not her first glass of wine. "Have you seen the ice sculpture? It's shaped like our company logo. Mr. Blake must have spent a fortune on this party." "It's very impressive," Natalie agreed, scanning the crowd. She spotted Harrison near the bar, surrounded by board members and investors. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, and even from across the room, he commanded attention. Their eyes met for a brief second before someone blocked her view. The evening dragged on. Natalie made polite conversation with colleagues, laughed at jokes she didn't find funny, and counted the minutes until she could leave without seeming rude. She was considering her escape when the music shifted to something slower, more romantic. "Dance with me?" Natalie turned to find Harrison standing behind her, but something was different. He was smiling, really smiling, with warmth in his gray eyes she'd never seen before. His whole demeanor seemed lighter, more relaxed. "Miss Blake, I didn't know you danced," she said, surprised. "There's a lot you don't know about me," he replied, extending his hand. His voice was playful, teasing in a way Harrison Blake never was. Maybe it was the champagne, or the romantic lighting, or the way her heart had been quietly hoping for this moment for months. Natalie placed her hand in his and let him lead her onto the dance floor. The dance. That changed everything. His hand settled on her waist, warm and sure, and Natalie forgot how to breathe. They moved together naturally, as if they'd danced 100 times before. This close, she could see tiny flecks of blue in his gray eyes. Could feel the solid strength of him beneath the expensive suit. "You're full of surprises tonight, Mr. Blake," Natalie said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Call me Harrison," he said, spinning her gently. "At least when we're not in the office." This was definitely the champagne talking. Harrison Blake insisted on formal titles even in casual settings. But Natalie wasn't about to question her good fortune. "You're an excellent dancer, Harrison," she said, testing out his first name. It felt intimate, forbidden, thrilling. "I have many hidden talents," he replied, pulling her closer. "Maybe it's time you discovered some of them." Natalie's pulse raced. Was he actually flirting with her? After 2 years of strict professionalism, of carefully maintained boundaries, was something finally shifting between them? The music swelled, and Harrison's hand tightened on her waist. Natalie could feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, could see the way his eyes darkened as he looked at her. Around them, other couples danced, but Natalie barely noticed. Her entire world had narrowed to this moment, this man, this feeling of finally being seen. "I need to tell you something," Harrison murmured, his lips close to her ear. "Something I should have said a long time ago." "What?" Natalie whispered back, her heart hammering. "I've been watching you, Natalie. The way you light up when you solve a complex problem. The way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. The way you hide your smile behind your coffee cup when you think no one's looking." His voice was rough, intimate. "I've wanted to do this for so long." And he was leaning in, his hand coming up to cup her cheek, and his lips met hers in a kiss that made the entire ballroom disappear. Natalie's eyes fluttered closed. Her hand came up instinctively to rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing as fast as her own. The kiss was perfect. Everything she'd secretly dreamed about during late nights in the office, during stolen glances across conference rooms, during moments when she'd let herself imagine what if. When they broke apart, Natalie was breathless, dizzy, completely lost in the moment. "Natalie." The voice came from her left, sharp and cold as ice. It was Harrison's voice, but it wasn't coming from the man she'd just kissed. Natalie's head whipped around. Harrison Blake stood 3 feet away, his face a mask of shock and something that looked almost like betrayal. His gray eyes were locked on her, wide and stunned, his champagne glass forgotten in his hand. Natalie's brain stuttered. She looked back at the man she'd just kissed, really looked at him for the first time, and her stomach dropped to her feet. Same face, same build, same gray eyes. But now that she was paying attention, there were subtle differences. This man's smile was warmer, his energy lighter, and his suit was navy instead of charcoal. "My God," Natalie whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. The man she'd kissed grinned, completely unrepentant. "Surprise, Cameron?" Harrison's voice could have frozen the sun. "What the hell are you doing here?" Cameron, of course. Cameron Blake, Harrison's identical twin brother. Natalie had heard whispers about him. The prodigal son who'd left the family business years ago to pursue an art career in Europe. She'd never seen a photo, never imagined she'd meet him, and certainly never thought she'd mistake him for Harrison and kiss him in front of half the company. "I came home for the holidays." "Brother," Cameron said cheerfully, keeping one arm around Natalie's waist even as she tried to step away. "Dad insisted I attend the famous Blake Industries gala. I have to say, you've really outdone yourself with the champagne fountain." Natalie wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. Around them, people were starting to notice the commotion, heads turning toward the three of them. Whispers began spreading like wildfire through the crowd. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Blake," Natalie stammered, looking at Harrison. His face was carved from stone, expressionless, except for something burning in his eyes. "I thought he was you. I never would have my office." Harrison cut her off, his voice deadly quiet. "Both of you. Now." "Come on, Harrison," Cameron started, his playful tone fading. "It's just a party. No harm done." Now, Harrison turned on his heel and strode toward the exit, his spine rigid with barely controlled anger. The crowd parted for him like water. Cameron offered Natalie his arm, his expression somewhere between apologetic and amused. "Well, this should be interesting. Shall we?" Natalie ignored his arm and followed Harrison on shaky legs, acutely aware of hundreds of eyes watching her go. Behind her, she could hear the whispers starting in earnest. By Monday morning, everyone in the company would know. The analyst who kissed the CEO's twin brother, the woman who couldn't tell the Blake. Brothers apart, she might as well start packing her desk now. The confrontation, they took a private elevator to the executive floor. The silence suffocating. Harrison stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched tight enough to crack diamonds. Cameron leaned casually against the elevator wall, but Natalie caught the tension in his shoulders. The way his easy smile didn't quite reach his eyes. When they reached Harrison's office, he held the door open with precise, controlled movements. Natalie walked in first, her heels sinking into the plush carpet. The floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city sprawling below them. Lights twinkling like fallen stars. Cameron followed, dropping into one of the leather chairs as if this were a casual meeting. Harrison closed the door with careful control and turned to face them. "Explain." Just one word. But it carried the weight of years of complicated family history. Cameron shrugged, his facade of casual indifference firmly in place. "I saw a beautiful woman standing alone, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. I asked her to dance. We danced. There may have been a kiss. It happens at parties, Harrison. You knew she worked for me. It wasn't a question. I had a suspicion when she called me Mr. Blake," Cameron admitted, "but she didn't know who I was. And technically, I'm also a Blake, so she wasn't wrong." Harrison's eyes cut to Natalie like steel blades. "Did you know no?" The word burst out of her. "I swear I had no idea you had a twin, or that he'd be here." Or she stopped, realizing she was babbling. "I thought he was you." Something flickered across Harrison's face, there and gone too quickly to identify. "You thought I asked you to dance?" "Yes," Natalie said quietly, her cheeks burning with humiliation. "And you kissed him," Harrison continued, his voice carefully neutral, "because you thought he was me." The office felt too small, too hot. Natalie couldn't read his expression, couldn't tell if he was angry or hurt, or just coldly disappointed in her lack of judgment. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blake," she said, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "It was completely inappropriate. I understand if you want my resignation." "Whoa, hold on," Cameron interrupted, sitting up straighter. "Nobody's resigning over a kiss. Harrison, you're not seriously going to fire her for this?" "Stay out of it, Cameron." Harrison didn't look at his brother, his attention fixed entirely on Natalie. "You thought it was me, and you kissed me anyway, knowing I'm your boss, knowing the complications that would create." Natalie swallowed hard. Yes. The silence stretched between them, taut as a wire. Harrison's hands curled into fists at his sides, his knuckles white. Finally, he turned away, moving to the windows that overlooked the glittering city. "Get out," he said quietly. "Both of you, Harrison," Cameron began. "I said get out." His voice was soft, but it cut through the room like a blade. Cameron stood, shooting Natalie an apologetic glance. She followed him to the door, her legs feeling like lead. Just before she stepped into the hallway, she glanced back. Harrison stood silhouetted against the window, his shoulders rigid, his head bowed. In the reflection of the glass, Natalie could see his face, and the expression there made something crack in her chest. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked devastated. The morning after, Natalie didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed staring at her ceiling, replaying every mortifying moment of the gala. The dance. The kiss. Harrison's face when he'd seen them together. By the time her alarm went off at 6, she'd already been awake for hours. her stomach twisted in knots. She dressed carefully in a conservative gray suit, pulling her hair back into a severe bun. Professional armor for what would surely be the worst Monday of her career. The commute to Blake Industries felt like a death march, each step bringing her closer to inevitable disaster. The office was buzzing when she arrived. Conversations stopped as she walked past, replaced by whispers and poorly concealed stares. Rebecca caught her arm near the elevator bank. "Natalie, oh my God, everyone's talking about Friday night," she hissed. "Is it true you kissed Cameron Blake? Some people are saying you and Harrison were secretly dating, and you kissed his brother to get revenge. Others think Cameron was pretending to be Harrison to seduce you. What actually happened?" "It was a misunderstanding," Natalie said, pulling her arm free. "Nothing more." She made it to her desk and tried to focus on work, but her hands shook every time she touched the keyboard. At 8:30, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Coffee? I owe you an apology. The real kind, not the fake kind I gave Harrison." Cameron naughtily stared at the message. She should delete it, block the number, pretend Friday night never happened. Instead, she found herself typing back, "How did you get my number? I'm charming and resourceful. Meet me at Groundworks in 20 minutes. Against every instinct screaming at her to stay away from anything Blick-related, Natalie grabbed her purse and headed for the elevators. Coffee with Cameron Groundworks. Coffee was a small cafe 3 blocks from Blake Industries, the kind of place where freelancers camped out with laptops and artists sketched in notebooks. Cameron was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 steaming cups in front of him. "I ordered you a vanilla latte," he said as she approached. "I figured you for a vanilla latte person." "You figured wrong," Natalie said, but she sat down anyway. "I drink black coffee." Cameron's eyes widened. "Really? Harrison drinks black coffee?" "I would have thought you'd want to differentiate yourself from his preferences." "I'm not trying to differentiate myself from anyone," Natalie said, taking a sip of the latte. "It was good, unfortunately. I just drink what I like." Cameron leaned back in his chair, studying her. In casual jeans and a Henley shirt, he looked nothing like his corporate twin. His hair was slightly longer, more tousled, and his eyes held none of Harrison's calculated coldness. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "For Friday night, for pretending to be Harrison, for kissing you under false pretenses, for causing what I'm sure has been a spectacularly awful weekend for you. Why did you do it?" Natalie asked. "You knew I thought you were him. You could have corrected me at any point." Cameron was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on his coffee cup. "Have you ever wanted something your whole life, only to watch your identical twin brother get it instead?" "I don't have an identical twin brother," Natalie pointed out. "Lucky you." Cameron's smile was bitter. "Harrison and I are twins, but we might as well be from different planets." He got the business sense, the discipline, the ability to turn himself into exactly what our father wanted. I got the creativity, the wanderlust, the inability to fit into the Blake Industries mold. That doesn't answer my question." "I saw the way you looked at him across that ballroom," Cameron said quietly. "Like he was the only person in the room. Like he hung the moon, and you were just grateful to bask in the light. And I wondered what that would feel like, to have someone look at me that way. So when you mistook me for Harrison, I let you. I wanted one dance, one moment of being the twin who got chosen." Natalie's anger deflated slightly. She understood wanting to be seen, to matter to someone. But it wasn't real. "I thought you were someone else." "I know." Cameron met her eyes. "But here's the thing, Natalie. The way you felt during that dance, that wasn't about Harrison's face or his name. That was chemistry, connection. Maybe it started because you thought I was him, but what you felt, that was real." "You're very sure of yourself," Natalie said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I'm an artist. I know when I've created something worth keeping." Cameron leaned forward. "Have dinner with me tonight. A real dinner, where you know exactly who I am. Give me a chance to show you that Cameron Blake might be just as worth your time as Harrison Blake." "That's a terrible idea," Natalie said immediately. "Harrison already thinks I have poor judgment. Dating his brother would confirm it." "Harrison thinks everyone has poor judgment compared to him," Cameron countered. "That's his problem, not yours. Besides, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm asking for one dinner. What's the harm? The harm was that Natalie's heart was still tangled up in feelings for Harrison, feelings that Friday night had confirmed were not reciprocated. The harm was that Cameron looked so much like his brother that being with him felt like playing with fire. The harm was that, despite everything, she wanted to say yes. One dinner, she heard herself say, "But just as friends? I need to be clear about that." Cameron's grin was brilliant. "Friends? Absolutely. I'll pick you up at 7. Harrison's cold distance back at the office. Natalie found an email waiting from Harrison. Subject line, reassignment. Brooks, effective immediately. You will report to Donald Patterson in the investment strategy division. He will oversee the completion of the Redwood merger analysis. All your current projects will be transferred by end of day. HB. Natalie read it 3 times, each time feeling the words like a physical blow. He was removing her from his team, cutting her out of the merger she'd spent months analyzing. It was professional exile disguised as a lateral move. She wanted to march into his office and demand an explanation. But the memory of his devastated expression Friday night stopped her. Harrison was protecting himself the only way he knew how, by creating distance and rigid boundaries. Donald Patterson turned out to be a pleasant enough supervisor. A grandfatherly man in his 60s who preferred long lunches and delegation to actual work. The projects he assigned Natalie were mind-numbingly simple compared to the complex analyses she'd been doing for Harrison. By Wednesday, Natalie felt like she was going backward in her career. By Friday, she was actively considering job offers from competitors. "You look miserable," Cameron said, appearing at her desk with takeout containers. "I brought lunch. Thai food solves all problems." "Cameron, you can't keep showing up at my desk," Natalie hissed, glancing around. More whispers were starting. "People are already talking. Let them talk." Cameron set down the food and perched on the edge of her desk. "Life's too short to worry about office gossip. Besides, I'm the VP of Creative Innovation now. It's literally my job to shake things up. You got a position here?" Natalie's eyes widened. Dad insisted. "Apparently, having both Blake's sons under one roof is good for the family legacy or something." Cameron opened a container of pad thai. "Which means you'll be seeing a lot more of me. Hope you're ready for that." Across the office floor, visible through his glass walls, Harrison stood at his desk talking on the phone. His eyes found Natalie and Cameron, and even from this distance, she could see his expression darken. He turned away sharply, his shoulders rigid with tension. "He's watching," Cameron observed, following her gaze. "Good, good. How is any of this good?" "Because Harrison has spent 6 years building walls so high, nobody could climb them," Cameron said, his voice surprisingly serious. "You shook his foundation, Natalie. That kiss, even though it was with me, it showed him what he's been denying. That he wants something outside of spreadsheets and board meetings. That he's capable of feeling jealous and hurt and possessive." "Out." "I don't want to make him hurt," Natalie protested. "Sometimes people need to hurt before they can heal." Ebron stood, leaving the food on her desk. "Enjoy lunch. And Natalie, don't give up on him yet. My brother's an idiot, but he's not completely hopeless." The rivals' threat the following week brought new complications. Blake Industries' biggest competitor, Westfield Corporation, announced a hostile takeover attempt. The news sent shockwaves through the company. Suddenly everyone's job security was in question. Harrison called an emergency all-hands meeting in the main conference room. Natalie found a seat near the back, watching as he stood at the podium, commanding and controlled as ever. "I want to address the rumors directly," Harrison said, his voice carrying through the packed room. "Yes. Westfield has made an offer to our shareholders. No, we are not accepting it. Blake Industries has weathered storms before, and will weather this one too. But I need everyone focused, everyone committed. We have 3 weeks to prove to our shareholders that remaining independent is the right choice." After the meeting, Natalie was leaving when she heard raised voices from Harrison's office. She shouldn't eavesdrop, but something made her pause near the partially open door. "You can't fight this alone, Harrison." That was Cameron's voice. "Westfield has twice our capital reserves. They're going to pick us apart piece by piece." Then we show the board that capital isn't everything. Harrison's voice was steely. We have better talent, better strategy, better execution. You mean you have Natalie's analysis, Cameron said? The Redwood merger projections that would prove Blake Industries can expand without external funding? The work you reassigned to Patterson, who doesn't have half her insight. Silence. Then Harrison spoke, his voice quieter. Bringing her back onto my team would be inappropriate after what happened. So you'd rather lose the company than work with a woman you have feelings for? Cameron's voice rose. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I once tried to paint a mural on the side of a moving train. I don't have feelings for her, Harrison said. But he sounded like he was trying to convince himself. What I have is a professional responsibility to maintain appropriate boundaries. You're lying to yourself, brother. I know you. I've known you for 35 years. You're in love with her, and you're terrified of what that means. Natalie's breath caught. She shouldn't be hearing this, shouldn't be frozen in place listening to Harrison's silence stretch and stretch. What I feel doesn't matter, Harrison finally said. She deserves better than a man who can't separate business from personal, who sees relationships as liabilities to be managed. She deserves someone like you, someone who can actually connect with people without turning it into a contract negotiation. For once in your life, stop thinking and just feel, Cameron said. Talk to her. Tell her the truth. Or I will. You have no right. I have every right. I care about her too, Harrison. And unlike you, I'm not going to let fear keep me from telling her that. Natalie fled before she could hear more, her heart hammering in her chest. Back at her desk, she tried to process what she'd overheard. Harrison had feelings for her. Cameron had feelings for her. And she was caught between two brothers who couldn't seem to communicate without their childhood rivalry getting in the way. Her phone buzzed. A text from Cameron. Dinner tonight. Not a request. We need to talk. Then another text. It's one from Harrison's office number. Brooks, I need your Redwood analysis for the board presentation. Patterson's work is inadequate. My office, 5 p.m. Natalie stared at both messages. Feeling like she was standing at a crossroads with no idea which path to take, the choice begins. She went to Harrison's office first. Arriving exactly at 5 with her laptop and printed copies of her original analysis, Harrison was alone, his desk covered in financial reports and projections. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes suggesting he'd slept as little as she had lately. Brooks, thank you for coming, he said formally, not quite meeting her eyes. I need you to walk me through your Redwood projections. Patterson's version is missing critical risk factors. Natalie set up her laptop and began explaining her analysis, falling into the familiar rhythm of their working relationship. Harrison asked sharp questions, challenged her assumptions, pushed her to defend every conclusion. It was exactly like before, except for the careful distance he maintained. Never standing too close, never letting their hands accidentally brush. An hour passed, then 2. The sun set outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the office lights automatically dimmed to evening mode. Natalie was explaining a complex debt restructuring scenario when Harrison suddenly interrupted. Why did you kiss Cameron? The question came out of nowhere, derailing her entire train of thought. Natalie looked up from her laptop to find Harrison watching her with an expression she couldn't read. I thought he was you, she said carefully. I've already explained this. But you wanted to kiss me, Harrison pressed. Why? Natalie's heart raced. This was dangerous territory, the kind of conversation that could destroy what little professional relationship they had left. But she was tired of pretending, tired of hiding. Because for 2 years I've watched you command boardrooms and negotiate impossible deals, she said quietly. I've seen you work 18-hour days and still remember everyone's coffee order. I've watched you carry the weight of this entire company on your shoulders without complaint. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as just my boss. I started seeing you as someone I could fall for if I let myself. Harrison's jaw tightened. You shouldn't have let yourself. I know. Believe me, I know. Natalie closed her laptop. I've tried not to. I've told myself 1,000 times that you're emotionally unavailable. That office relationships are career suicide. that I'm just projecting onto someone I admire professionally. But then Cameron smiled at me with your face and touched me with your hands, and for one perfect moment. I let myself believe you might feel the same way, Natalie, but you don't, she continued, needing to finish before she lost her nerve. You made that clear when you reassigned me, when you cut me out of your team without explanation. And that's okay, Harrison. I'll get over it. I'll move on. But don't ask me why I kissed Cameron when you already know the answer. She stood, gathering her things. Harrison rose too, moving around his desk with surprising speed. You're wrong, he said, his voice rough. About me not feeling the same way. Natalie froze, her hand on her laptop bag. I saw you kiss Cameron, and it felt like something vital had been ripped out of my chest. Harrison said, the words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. I reassigned you because having you near me every day, wanting you and not being able to have you, was torture. I cut you out because it was the only way I could protect myself from wanting more than you could give me. Harrison, let me finish. He ran a hand through his hair, destroying its perfect styling. I'm not good at this. At feelings, at relationships, at being anything other than the CEO. My father raised Cameron and me to believe emotions were weaknesses, that personal connections were liabilities. And I believed him. I built my entire life around control and distance and calculated risk management. He took a step closer, and Natalie could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear warring with hope. But then you walked into my office 2 years ago with your brilliant analysis and your terrible coffee habits, and you made me want things I'd convinced myself I didn't need, Harrison continued. You made me laugh when I'd forgotten how. You challenged me when everyone else just agreed. You saw past the CEO to the person underneath, and it terrified me because I didn't know how to be that person anymore. So what are you saying? Natalie whispered. I'm saying my brother is right. I'm in love with you, and I've been too much of a coward to admit it. Harrison's voice dropped. I'm saying that watching you with Cameron, seeing him make you laugh and smile and feel appreciated, has been killing me. I'm saying I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. Natalie's mind spun. This was everything she'd wanted to hear, everything she'd dreamed about during late nights and stolen glances. But the image of Cameron's warm smile, his easy affection, his willingness to be vulnerable, complicated everything. I need time, she said. To think. To figure out what I want without both of you pulling me in different directions, of course. Harrison stepped back immediately, his professional mask sliding into place. Take all the time you need. In the meantime, I'd like you back on my team for the Westfield situation. If you're willing. I'm willing, Natalie confirmed. But Harrison, this doesn't mean I've made a choice. It just means I need to understand what I'm actually choosing between. I understand, Harrison said, though something flickered in his eyes. Thank you for staying late. I'll see you Monday morning. Natalie left his office in a daze, only to find Cameron waiting by the elevators. Let me guess, he said. Harrison finally told you the truth? How did you know? Because I told him I would if he didn't? Cameron smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. So now you know. Both Blake brothers want you. Both Blake brothers would do anything to make you happy. The question is, which one actually can? The Westfield crisis Monday morning arrived with news that Westfield Corporation had increased their takeover offer by 15%. The Blake Industries stock price jumped, and suddenly, shareholders, who'd been loyal for decades, were reconsidering their positions. Harrison called an emergency strategy meeting with the senior leadership team. Natalie found herself sitting at the conference table, her redwood analysis projected on the screen. Facing a room full of executives who would decide the company's fate. Brooks. Explain how the Redwood merger changes our valuation, Harrison said, his voice clipped and professional. In the office, he was all CEO. No trace of the vulnerable man who'd confessed his feelings 3 days ago. Natalie stood and launched into her presentation, explaining how acquiring Redwood Technologies would diversify Blake Industries' portfolio and increase their market share by 23%. The numbers were solid, her analysis flawless, but she could see skepticism on several faces. This is all very optimistic, Gerald Thompson from the board said, leaning back in his chair. But Westfield is offering real money today. Redwood is a gamble that might pay off in 3 to 5 years. With respect, Mr. Thompson, staying independent is always a gamble, Natalie countered. But our analysis shows that Westfield's acquisition would result in massive redundancies. 70% of Blake Industries employees would be laid off within the first year. Is that really the legacy you want to leave? The room fell silent. Harrison's eyes met hers across the table, and she saw approval there, pride, something deeper that made her breath catch. Brooks makes an excellent point. Cameron spoke up from his seat near the door. He'd been quiet throughout the meeting, but now he leaned forward. Westfield wants to strip us for parts. They want our patents, our client lists, our market position. They don't care about the people who built this company. And you think the Blake brothers care? Thompson challenged. Harrison, you've been running this company like a machine for 6 years. When's the last time you walked the production floor or attended a company picnic? When's the last time you knew your employees' names? Harrison's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, Cameron stood. My brother might not be warm and fuzzy, but he knows every employee's name, their spouse's name, and how many kids they have, Cameron said, his voice hard. He knows because he reviews every single personnel file personally. He knows because when someone's having a rough time, he quietly arranges for help. He knows because he cares about this company and everyone in it, even if he's terrible at showing it. Harrison looked startled, then almost embarrassed. Cameron, no, let me finish. Cameron moved to stand beside Harrison, and for the first time, Natalie saw them as a united front rather than opposing forces. Harrison and I might disagree on a lot of things, but we agree on this. Blake Industries is more than a balance sheet. It's a family legacy, and families don't abandon each other for a quick profit. Thompson studied both brothers, his expression thoughtful. You two finally working together might be the most surprising development of this whole crisis. He turned to the rest of the board. I propose we table the Westfield offer and move forward with the Redwood merger. All in favor? The vote was unanimous. After the meeting, Natalie was gathering her materials when Harrison approached. Thank you, he said quietly. Your analysis gave us the ammunition we needed. Just doing my job, Natalie replied, hyper-aware of how close he was standing. It's more than that, and you know it. Harrison's voice dropped. Have you thought about what I said? About us? Before Natalie could answer, Cameron appeared at her other side. Great presentation, Natalie, he said warmly. You were brilliant up there. Want to grab lunch to celebrate? Natalie looked between the two brothers, feeling the tension crackling in the air. Both waiting for her answer, both trying to hide how much her choice mattered. I can't do this, she said suddenly. I can't have both of you circling me like this, waiting for me to choose. Making everything about your rivalry instead of what I actually need. We're not, Harrison started.
Natalie
Interrupted, and I understand why. You're brothers with a complicated history, and I somehow landed in the middle of it. But I'm not a prize to be one. I'm a person trying to figure out what I want from my life, my career, my relationships, and I can't do that with both of you constantly there. She grabbed her laptop and headed for the door, then paused and turned back. Day, here's what's going to happen. I'm taking a week off. Personal leave, effective immediately. During that week, neither of you will contact me. No texts, no calls, no surprise visits. When I come back, I'll tell you what I've decided. About my job, about my feelings, about everything. But until then, you both need to respect my space and let me think. Harrison and Cameron exchanged a glance, some wordless communication passing between them. Then Harrison nodded. Double quotes. 1 week. He agreed. We'll respect your wishes. Thank you. Natalie left before either brother could say anything else. The week. Away, Natalie spent the first 2 days of her leave doing absolutely nothing. She slept until noon, binge-watched television shows she'd been meaning to catch up on, and ordered takeout from every restaurant within delivery range. By day 3, the mindless distraction stopped working, and she had to actually confront her feelings. She made a list, because that's what analysts do. 2 columns, Harrison and Cameron. Harrison, brilliant. Driven, understands her professional ambitions, challenges her intellectually, shares her work ethic, makes her want to be better. That devastating moment of vulnerability when he confessed his feelings. The way he'd protected her during the board meeting without taking credit. Cameron warm. Open, easy to be with, makes her laugh, appreciates art and beauty, already knows how to balance work and life. Would never make her feel like emotions were weaknesses. That sweet kiss on her forehead. The way he'd defended Harrison to the board, staring at the list didn't help. Both brothers had qualities she wanted. Both made her feel things she'd been denying for too long. Both represented different versions of the life she could have. On day 4, she called her best friend from college, Jessica, who now lived in Seattle. Let me get this straight, Jessica said over video chat. You accidentally kissed the identical twin of your boss. The boss confessed he loves you. The twin also wants to date you, and now you have to choose between them. That's the situation, Natalie confirmed. Girl, this is like something from a romance novel. A really complicated one. Jessica leaned closer to her camera. What does your gut say? My gut says I'm going to hurt someone no matter what I choose, Natalie admitted. And I hate that. But who do you think about when you're falling asleep at night? Jessica pressed. When you imagine your future, who's standing next to you? Natalie closed her eyes, letting herself really picture it. And slowly an answer began to emerge. The discovery on day 6, Natalie decided to go into the office to pick up some personal items she'd left at her desk. She went early, before 7, assuming the building would be nearly empty. The executive floor was dark when she stepped off the elevator, illuminated only by emergency lighting and the gray dawn filtering through the windows. She was heading to her desk when she noticed light coming from Harrison's office. Curious, she moved closer. Through the glass walls, she could see Harrison asleep at his desk. His head pillowed on his arms, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. He looked exhausted, vulnerable in a way he never allowed during business hours. Natalie's heart clenched. She should leave. Let him sleep. Respect the boundaries she'd set. But something made her quietly open the door and step inside. Up close, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the stubble on his jaw that suggested he hadn't been home in days. One of the papers near his hand caught her attention, an email draft addressed to her, unsent. She shouldn't read it. But her eyes found the words anyway. Natalie, I know you ask for space, and I'm trying to give you that. But I need you to understand something. Cameron was right when he said I've spent 6 years building walls. What he didn't say is that I built them because I watched our father destroy his marriage to our mother by choosing work over family every single time. I swore I'd never do that, never hurt someone I loved by giving them half of myself. So I gave them nothing instead. I gave everyone nothing. I convinced myself that was kinder, but you made me realize that giving nothing is its own kind of cruelty. You deserve someone who shows up fully, who isn't afraid to feel, who can balance ambition with emotion. I don't know if I can be that person, but I want to try. For you, I want to try. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. If you choose Cameron, I'll be happy for both of you and mean it. If you choose neither of us, I'll understand. And if by some miracle you choose me, I promise to spend every day trying to be worthy of that choice. I love you. I should have said it 2 years ago, but I'm saying it now. I love you. Harrison Natalie read the email 3 times, tears stinging her eyes. This was the man behind the CEO mask, the person Harrison was too afraid to show the world. Vulnerable, scared, desperately wanting to be better than his past. You weren't supposed to see that. Harrison's voice made her jump. He was awake, watching her with those gray eyes that saw too much. I'm sorry, Natalie said. I came in early to get some things, and I saw you sleeping, and then I saw the email, and I invaded my privacy. Harrison's lips quirked almost a smile. I suppose that's fair, considering how many times I've watched you through these glass walls when you thought no one was looking. You watched me? Every day. Harrison sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. You bite your lip when you're concentrating. You do this little victory dance when you solve a complicated problem. You make terrible jokes to yourself and laugh at them. I memorized all of it because it was the only way I could let myself be close to you. Natalie's heart hammered in her chest. Harrison, you still have one more day, he said quickly. I'm not trying to influence your decision. I just want you to know that whatever you choose, I meant every word in that email. You've changed me, Natalie. Made me want to be someone capable of actually living instead of just working. They stared at each other in the quiet office, the city waking up beyond the windows. Natalie felt the last piece of the puzzle click into place. I don't need another day, she said softly. The final choice that evening. Natalie invited both brothers to her apartment. She'd thought about doing this separately, but it felt cowardly. They deserved to hear her decision together, as brothers, not as rivals. Cameron arrived first, bringing wine and that easy smile that had made her laugh through so much tension. Harrison came exactly on time, wearing jeans and a simple button-down instead of his usual suit, looking almost nervous. Thank you both for coming, Natalie said once they were settled in her small living room. I asked you here because I need to tell you something, and I need to say it while you're both present. Sounds ominous, Cameron said lightly. But his knuckles were white around his wine glass. Harrison said nothing, his expression carefully neutral. These past few weeks have been the most complicated of my life, Natalie began. I've been forced to examine feelings I'd been hiding, to confront possibilities I'd never let myself imagine, to choose between two incredible men who both somehow want me. She took a breath, meeting first Cameron's eyes, then Harrison's. Cameron, you've been amazing. You're warm and open, and you make me feel seen in ways I didn't know I needed. You know how to live, how to find joy in small moments, how to connect with people without walls or pretenses. Any woman would be lucky to be loved by you. Cameron's smile faltered. I hear a but coming. But, Natalie continued gently, when I imagine my future. When I think about who I want to build a life with, it's not you. And that's not because you're not wonderful. It's because you remind me too much of who I want to be, but you're not who I'm meant to be with. Cameron was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I understand. I mean, it hurts like hell, but I understand. He glanced at his brother. You're choosing Harrison? I'm choosing the man who challenges me to be better, Natalie said, turning to Harrison. The man who sees my ambitions and supports them instead of asking me to soften them. The man who's been too scared to feel anything because he feels everything too deeply. The man who wrote me an email he never sent because he was trying to respect my boundaries even though it was killing him. Harrison's carefully controlled expression cracked, hope flooding into his eyes. Natalie, I choose you, Harrison Blake, she said clearly. With all your walls and complications and terrible fear of vulnerability, I choose you because when I kissed Cameron, thinking he was you, what I felt was a shadow of what I feel when I'm actually with you. I choose you because my version of happiness includes late night strategy sessions and complicated financial models and someone who understands why I love this work. I choose you because you're worth the wait. Harrison stood so abruptly his chair nearly tipped over. In 3 strides, he was across the room, his hands framing her face, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized she was crying. Are you sure? His voice was rough, desperate. Because once I let myself have this, have you, I won't be able to let go. I'm sure, Natalie whispered. But Harrison, you have to promise me something. No more walls. No more hiding behind the CEO persona. If this is going to work, I need all of you, the brilliant strategist and the scared man who watched his father choose work over love. I promise, Harrison said. I'll try. I'll probably mess up sometimes, but I'll try. Then he was kissing her, and it was nothing like the kiss at the gala. This was real, raw, full of everything they'd been holding back for 2 years. Natalie's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and Harrison made a sound that might have been her name or a prayer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cameron was standing by the door. I should go, he said, and despite the pain in his eyes, he was smiling. Give you to some space to figure out whatever this is. Cameron, wait, Harrison said, catching his brother's arm. I'm sorry. For everything. For getting the girl, For being Dad's favorite, for all of it. Don't be sorry for being who you are, Cameron said. And for the record, I'm happy for you. Both of you. You're good for him, Natalie. You make him human again, pulled Harrison into a brief, fierce hug. Treat her right, or I'll paint a mural on your office wall that you can't remove, noted Harrison said, his voice thick with emotion. After Cameron left, Natalie and Harrison stood in her small apartment, suddenly unsure what came next. So Harrison said, I've never actually done this. The relationship thing. Neither have I, Natalie admitted. Not really. We'll figure it out together, Harrison said, pulling her close. Starting with me taking